skip it. See it or skip it. See it or skip it.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of See It or Skip It, where we're going to be talking about a new Jack Quaid film, what you can see on streaming, and of course, I'm here with my co-host, Rebecca Frost. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, well, we've got a lot to talk about.
A lot of movies.
I'm very excited to promote and maybe caution people on what they shouldn't see this weekend. But should we start with Novocaine?
Novocaine, action-packed.
Yes. So this is starring Jack Quaid. If you don't know who his parents are, it's Meg Ryan, it's Dennis Quaid. He looks exactly like both of them at the same time. I don't know how that's possible, but he is starring in this film where he's a mild-mannered banker. He really is unassuming, doesn't really do a lot during his day because he's afraid. And that fear comes from this disability he has where he can't feel any pain at all. Like, he has no recollection.
So he has to drink all of his food for fear of even like biting his own tongue off. Like, he takes it to the extreme.
Mm-hmm. Well, what did you think of him in this film? What do you think of the story? I
personally love Jack Quaid. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I love him in Lower Decks. I actually like him in anything he does. The story is one of those stories that was so interesting that it is an original idea, right? It's not adapted from a comic book, which you kind of think it would be. But overall, standalone story, you know, he, first of all, falls in love with a coworker, not super jazzed, but, you know, falls in love with a coworker, something goes wrong and he has to go after her, right? And I liked the steps that they took for, it wasn't just, oh, now you have to go here, oh, now you have to go here. There were reasons for it, right? And it felt very much like an established story.
Right, well, and the crush that he has, Amber Midthunder, who, you know, from Prey, if you've seen the movie Prey, excellent work. And I relate a lot to Jack Quaid, that I would also do whatever I could to try to save
Amber Midthunder.
Yeah, you know.
Big week for her. She shows up in another movie that we're going to talk about.
Right. Well, for this particularly, we have the Battle of the Nepo Babies.
Yeah.
There's Jack Quaid, and we also have Ray Nicholson, Jack Nicholson's son, playing a very convincing bank robber that maybe for any other actor could be a little more one note, but I think he does a little bit with it that I found really entertaining.
And he's already showed up in previous movies in a more villainous type role, so I hope we don't see him as that from now on. There's
apparently a film that debuted at South by Southwest that's getting a lot of heat that he was starring in. Whether he's the protagonist or antagonist, I'm not so sure, but hopefully it comes out this year. What do you think of the action in this? Because this is a lot of gore, there's a lot of blood. For squeamish people, it might be a tough sell.
I was squeamishly just in my, I tend to get pretty vocal at the movie theater, and I was very vocal during Novocaine, watching it through my hands a lot of the time because I like horror movies, I like action, but when it comes to gore, I can't look directly at it, and there is a lot of it in this movie.
I think what makes this work, though, and for anybody that's squeamish, I would honestly recommend still giving it a shot because the comedy cuts through a lot of that, where if you see, like, there's an immediate cringe to, like, a bone breaking, but what he ends up doing with that bone, or how he reacts to having something break and being like, oh, ow, you know, fascinating, hilarious. The story, it's a little, we've seen a gimmick be overused and not really work for a film. In this way, I think it was executed really well. For me, I'm going to say definitely see it.
Yeah, absolutely see it. If you can handle your blood and guts.
Well, what do we have next?
So next up we have Black Bag, the latest Steven Soderbergh movie. Last time we saw Steven Soderbergh was with Presents, which did not like, but every other Steven Soderbergh movie, love. The man is masterful in the editing room because this movie comes in at an hour and a half and tells a really sharp, sleek, and concise story. We don't exactly know what these people do. So it stars Michael Fassbender, Cate Blanchett, Regé-Jean Page, and we don't know exactly what they do except that they work in some type of espionage business.
They're a spy couple.
They're a spy, and Michael Fassbender, Cate Blanchett married in the movie, and we are led to believe that someone amongst their group is a traitor, and it is up to Michael Fassbender to find out who it is, and on the list of potential traitors is his wife. And so how does that affect their marriage? How does that affect their business? we find out in 90 minutes or less.
So this is the same director as Ocean's 11, but I kind of want to preface that this is not Ocean's 11, and it's not really like a 007 spy thing. It's tough to consider this a spy film because it's very dialogue driven. It's very much a slow burn, though the runtime is a breeze. Like anybody that hates the 20-minute like ad previews before any film, this will actually cut that out so that you'll be there for a cool 2 hours and it won't be too bad. But I don't know if the dialogue driven genre of spy thrillers works necessarily in a theater. So I don't know if I can recommend this for people in a theater, maybe just for streaming. I
recommend it for theater just because I think it is, like I said, it is sleek, it is stylish, it's sexy. I was engaged the entire time. And the production design of this movie, I know not a lot of people care about production design. I was obsessed. I could look at that screen for 2 whole more hours just because it was so gorgeous to look at.
Well, and a big part of its sell is the chemistry between Fassbender and Blanchett, and I think they both work really well. They both are kind of opposites of the same coin, but when you see them working together, it's kind of giving Mr. and Mrs. Smith vibes. But
absolutely
again,
had that thought.
It feels like they were like, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but take out the action.
Yes.
There you go.
Exactly.
I don't know how much that sells for theaters. So
sure.
For me, it's a see it, but I might say you can wait for it to come out on streaming. It might be even in a few weeks, who knows?
I'm going to say see it in a theater, especially because we need more original work in theaters, and this is one of a kind.
I knew we were going to have differences on this one. I'm glad we do, though. Next is Opus. This is from A24, starring Io Debris, who is one of my favorite up-and-coming. I don't even know if you can call her up-and-coming anymore.
Yeah.
She's been here, and she's been like bringing in some heat, especially with The Bear. Now she's a journalist who gets invited to this retreat, this album listening retreat that John Malkovich, who is this very eccentric, very rock star-esque person, is putting out an album for the first time in a very long time. So he's bringing along a bunch of other journalists with connections to him to this ranch that might be a cult.
Yeah, the thing about Opus, it's an A24 movie, and I'm a sucker for an A24 movie, but they can't all be winners, right? It is kind of a Herculean task to create a character who is a world-renowned and beloved rock star, and also maybe a cult leader, and setting up the cult that has a fully formed purpose.
I thought you were going to say, and also John Malkovich.
And also John Malkovich? Here's the thing. I can believe John Malkovich as a retired rock star and maybe cult leader. I cannot believe him as a rock star when he is actually performing. Because there is a scene in Opus where he performs, and it's like the man has never moved his body once in his life.
He completely disappears in like a Daft Punk type outfit. It's one of the most bizarre scenes, and it's very A24. But this movie feels like if SNL did an A24 parody type film. It
felt like a knockoff Midsommar, and very non-committal to even itself. It sets up a lot of premises, asks a lot of questions, doesn't answer a single one.
Right. It's like they watched the menu and didn't understand why the menu worked.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of parallels to it. I still think that Io Debris is a terrific actress. I think she gives her best in this. Like she's giving her best, acting capability she can. But the story just doesn't really work that well. It doesn't gel.
Yeah.
So for this, I would give it a skip it. What about you?
Skip it, unfortunately.
Oh man, our first double skip.
Bummer.
Okay, well, hopefully we're not skipping this one with Looney Tunes.
No, absolutely not.
So what is this one we have?
So Day the Earth Blew Up is our actually first feature-length Looney Tunes film. No live-action accessory humans involved, and Daffy and Porky, brothers and roommates, struggling to save their home while also aliens are invading, and they have to solve the mystery of what's going on with these aliens.
Were you a Looney Tunes fan growing up?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They were always on my Saturday morning watch list. I remember when I first got to see the Warner Brothers lot, I was looking at the Water Tower, thinking the Animaniacs, and just thinking about all of the cartoons that studio has brought to us. It's fascinating about this. I want to give a little bit of backstory. It was originally supposed to come out in 2022, I believe, but it ended up being in the mix of Warner Brothers change in how they handled things, and a bunch of tax write-offs were underway because they were shelving films, much like Batgirl. I think it's Wile E. Coyote versus Acme.
Coyote versus Acme, yeah.
And this one, rather than getting the tax write-off, decided to option it for another company to maybe take it under, and Catch Up Entertainment took it under, and that's why we have it now. But talking with them, this has been years in the making, and it's really good.
It is so good. I am a complete sucker for animation. Every time I watch an animated movie, I sit in my chair and I go, I just love animation so much. And it tackles so many different types of animation styles while still adhering to what makes Looney Tunes Looney Tunes. And it's just classic Looney Tunes. And if you love classic Looney Tunes, you're going to love Day the Earth Blew Up. And I was never once bored. I was engaged the entire time. I do think it runs a little bit long, but I think as I'm used to seeing Looney Tunes, 5 minutes or less.
I think this is one you can absolutely bring your kids to
Totally.
to reintroduce Looney Tunes in a lot of ways, because it has the same nostalgic feel that we feel when we watch it growing up, but it also is able to move the needle a little forward. I like the animation styles. That's one way that they do it. But I do think like fleshing Daffy and Porky out into a full feature length film and building their characters was really interesting. And you don't get that with Looney Tunes. They're like 2-minute things.
Especially with Daffy, because I was always so annoyed by Daffy Duck because he's so contrarian to everything. But this gives you a reason why Daffy is the way that he is and gives you a deeper look into his character, but also shows you another side of Porky Pig that maybe we're not used to. A mean Porky Pig? I don't know how I felt about that. But I want to say see this in theaters if you can. I'm hoping for a huge turnout for this in theaters because maybe Warner Brothers will see and release Coyote versus Acme.
That's a good point. See this in theaters. I absolutely agree. And definitely check out this thing that we have right here. We were able to talk to the stars, Eric Bauza and Candy Milo, about the film and maybe get a little bit of a taste of Porky, Daffy, and Petunia. Let's take a look. I'm so excited to talk to you about this film. I loved it, and I specifically loved both of you with Porky and Petunia. I think the big question on my mind that I think audiences want to know is how would you define Porky's riz when it comes to his relationship with Petunia? If both of you can describe that for me, that'd be great.
Oh, that it's okay to be nervous around someone that you have I think she's cute.
I think that Petunia is not something that she was looking for because she is such a super scientist and she's very busy with her tastes. And she just thinks that she's found the right flavor. And then the real right flavor turned out to be Porky.
Yeah, bacon, apparently.
I think that we have the same sensibility. It's so wonderful to get to play act that as a relationship on screen. It's very easy because I remember that Porky and Petunia start as a friendship, and then there is an attraction, and then he doesn't show up, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's typical. But it evolves into something a little bit more, and I think that she just finds him charming and affable and a great companion.
Kids, it's the real Roth and Rachel. Will they or will they not? Not to give any spoilers, but I'm at the edge of my seat every time I watch this movie.
Well, Daffy, welcome to the interview. I'm excited to talk to you, actually, because speaking of friendship, there's a big friendship between Porky and Daffy in this, and they really get a feature-length story to really tell and flesh out their characters. Eric, you've been doing this for a while now, and you have to switch constantly between these characters. What is the process like for that? And having taken the role on for so long, have you become like having shorthand with the characters, or are you kind of thinking, what would Mel Blanc do in certain situations? Has it become your own thing?
That's tattooed on my back is what would Mel do. When I was in prison for 10 years, I had that, tattooed on my back. It really is, it's the blueprint. I call Mel Blanc the blueprint. He is the blueprint. He was the original performer and creator of most of, if not all of the Looney Tunes characters. And aside from June Foray, of course, being there, filling in the other side of Looney Tunes. And you can't veer off of the tracks when it comes to these characters because I'm not the only one that grew up with them, and that is as familiar with them 90 years later. So we get the musical notes that we know and that we hear in our ears, and then the conductor hands us the new arrangement of how these notes are to be performed, and we just swing for the fences, really.
In interviews, I can talk back and forth with these characters.
But for the film, we will start with Porky. He's less taxing because when I start as Daffy, he's always at 11 and breaks the dial. It keeps going and going. There is no inside voice with Daffy because there's nothing inside. And I've gone on record, and Pete has said so in his interviews, where 9 times out of 10, when they get all those takes, especially the ones that they really like for each different character, and they marry them together, they do the shuffling of the deck of cards. They seem to work.
And sometimes I think that Pete Brownguard, who I think is genius, Johnny Ryan, all of these guys, Derek Bachman, I believe that they write Looney Tunes. They trust Eric so much that they write for him and they write to his sensibilities. I have been in some rooms on this where I've seen other Porkies and other Daffies and everybody. And I think that when you have somebody that's able to do them all, that's where the cohesion is, and that's what makes this film different, is that you don't have a different Porky and you don't have a different Daffy.
But I also thank you for the
I
kind
love
words.
you.
But what I also think, Candy, is that anyone that has, in my experience at least with these characters, and I've worked with Candy for so many years now, everyone is looking at the same target, and I think it's to
Exactly
what you said, bring these characters to a new audience and make sure that they get seen, and that they not only get seen, but that they bring as many laughs to the new folks that watch it as much as we got growing up watching them.
And I do think what I want to be clear is that anybody who has voiced these characters prior did a great job. They're all friends of ours. It's all, I'm just saying there's something about this movie when you have the same person doing it where he can match his energy coming from 2 different characters. He matches his energy. This is the most energetic I've ever seen Porky, who just stays toe to toe with Daffy. And I absolutely love it. And that's what I think is great, besides the writing and the animation.
We say the Looney Tunes have entered 90 years of being on screen, and Mel Blanc passed away in '89. And I always thank the men and women that have carried the torch and passed it on long enough for me to go from the kids' table at Thanksgiving to eating with the adults.
Again, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, is out in theaters now. Make sure that you check it out. But let's move into the streaming sphere on what we've got this weekend. First up, Invincible Season 3. I had a chance to finish this. I know I didn't mention it to you this week, but I figured, why not just throw this in the mix? It just wrapped up Season 3. I think an 8-episode arc, but we get the continuation of Mark from Invincible. Have you watched the previous 2 seasons?
No, I have
That's
not.
okay. I got this one. I think it's really interesting to bring adult animation into the forefront, and the creators of this, I believe they have a hand in working with The Boys too. And I've always heard this idea that The Boys is kind of the spoof on superheroes, but Invincible is taking it as seriously as possible from the same creator. So I find that very interesting. I think the voice acting is incredible in this. Like J.K. Simmons, Sandra Oh, Steven Yeun all give their best. There's a lot of Man of Steel comparisons for the fighting in this. I loved it all, but the animation maybe could have been tuned up a little bit. If you haven't had a chance to see these shows, make sure you check out all 3 seasons. They're available on Prime Video right now. Boom.
Got
them. Okay, now on to The Electric State.
Okay. The Russo brothers directed this one on Netflix. The story of this, it takes place, it's a pseudo-alternative history where humans and robots have worked together, and then there was a robot uprising, and the humans put the kibosh on that. And it takes place in like a pseudo-90s alternative. There's no internet except for when Neuralink is invented. Is that what it's called? I can't remember.
I don't remember. It's a lot of exposition.
That's the thing about this particular movie, is a lot happens and also nothing happens.
Yes.
This movie cost $320 million to make. It is one of the most expensive movies to ever be made. And why?
Yep. Well, and not like the creators of this, it's the Russo brothers. We know them from the Avengers films, the Captain America movies, but also we have Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely writing, which are also the Avengers Captain America writers. So you would think that they could bring something more to this than just kind of Avengers light, but it feels like that in a lot of ways.
Feels a lot like recycled material. You also have Alan Silvestri doing the score, and the score sounds a lot like the Avengers.
That was the main thing that took me out of it, was the score. I was like, this can't just be them reusing old stuff from Avengers, but I hear like the same notes, like the same progressions. It's very interesting. I think Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown stars. She's an orphaned, she gets orphaned after the robots take over. And essentially, there's a chance her brother is still alive. She sees this cute robot, cute friendly robot. She goes on a mission with dirty Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's a dirty guy, but like, you know, he's just filthy.
He gets to do this again.
Yep,
He loves to stand in front of a green screen and do this.
Yep. He again gives that, you know, witty humor that's kind of
Trademark
woven into everything
Chris Pratt,
he does.
yeah.
But I don't know, there's nothing to really grab hold to with this.
No, and I think the movie tries to pitch itself based on the cast, too. Like you said, Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt. You also have Giancarlo Esposito, Stanley Tucci, Jenny Slate, Woody Harrelson, Anthony Mackie. Like, this cast is huge, but what do they all do?
Yep. And, you know, Giancarlo Esposito, let's get the camera right on me here, because we need to make a plea to Hollywood. Hollywood. Hi. I'm nervous now already. Giancarlo Esposito can be more than a villain. Please cast him in more roles than just the traditional villain role. He does it great, and I'm sure he loves the paychecks. I'm sure he loves all of it, but I know that he would love to also play a character like Professor Xavier. He's gone on record to say that a ton of times, so please, let's give him more stuff to do. This was probably his most one-note character that I just did not care about.
Oh, yeah. And I had the exact same thought, too. I was like, man, can we get Giancarlo Esposito in something that's not this particular character that's out hunting down a protagonist? I know
Winter Soldier style.
Winter Soldier style, yeah. And yeah, this movie pissed me off, honestly. I was watching it but also grateful, hate that I'm going to say this, grateful that Netflix is moving in the direction where they have all of their characters explaining exactly what they are doing, because I was distracted doing literally anything else than paying attention to this movie.
That has been the new mandate for Netflix, apparently. I don't know if that's confirmed, is it?
Yeah.
So they're writing to make it so that you don't have to actually watch the screen for whatever content is out, because most of the writing is just going to be exposition dumps and explaining what is already happening on screen.
So that you can be on your phone while you're watching.
Yeah, this is a skip.
Skip.
I can't believe we talked about that one this much.
For so long.
There's a palpable rage that lets you be able to go as long as you want for a movie that might not have been the best.
And another thing, I thought they killed Mr. Peanut.
The character designs were horrifying.
Yeah.
Nightmare fuel. And Transformers-like. So it all just kind of blended together in this weird gray amorphous blob of robots fighting robots on a green field.
There's also a new trend that I've noticed with this movie and Paradise, if you've been watching Paradise, covers of 80s rock songs, but sent to like a more modern, jaunty, more indie-sounding style.
Yeah.
That shows up a lot in the Electric State.
Or like Westworld, where like we're gonna make a score out of Nine Inch Nails or something like that. It was disappointing. Whether or not this is telling for what's coming up for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, really not sure. Only one of the writers are coming back for it. I believe it's both directors, but we'll see. That about does it for this See It or Skip It. Did you have fun with this one?
Yeah.
6? We got 6 of them.
That's a lot.
Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Rebecca, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me weekly at the Geekshow podcast or on my Twitter and Instagram, @YouGrossRebecca.
I love being able to have that on the lower thirds. It's up right now.
I'm very professional.
Make sure to check out me on Patrick Beatty Reviews on Instagram, TikTok, and see the full interviews of stuff that we've been covering. Next week is going to be a very interesting one, so make sure you're following on social media to get a tease of what's to come. Once again, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you at the next review.
See it or skip it. 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 See it or skip it.